The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What can be said about them that hasn't already been said a million times? They had comics, merchandise, live-action movies, video games, and of course, the cartoon series, which is what brought the Turtles into the pop culture and launched them into a franchise. Now, of course, with something as big as this was with kids, there's obviously going to be some video games that come along with it. So let's check out the first one on NES. Alright, this is the first TMNT game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's pretty good for the first game of its kind, at least on a home console. The gameplay is very addicting. It's the kind of game that'll take your mind off of things. The controls are pretty responsive for the most part, though they do take a little while to get used to because of the pressure-sensitive jump controls. But it's good once you get the hang of it. Now be prepared, because this is one of the toughest NES games out there. A good example is right here. It's near impossible to swim through this part without going into the electric seaweed. There's a huge variety of levels. You have the side-scrolling portions where most of the action takes place, and then there's the overworld maps where you navigate buildings, all while avoiding tanks. On the third level, you get to drive around in the turtle van, which in the manual they call it the party wagon. All this variety makes the game very enjoyable and not boring in the slightest. The graphics are pretty good. They're not that cartoonish, and they're fairly detailed compared to the later two NES games. So they did a pretty good job in that field of the game. The music is also fairly good. It has some very memorable soundtracks and is overall very catchy. The sound effects are okay. I don't really have much to say about them though. I don't like that whenever you're low on energy, it makes this annoying alarm sound that goes off. It's nice to be alerted about that stuff, but it doesn't need to be this annoying about it though. So yeah, the game isn't perfect. There's also a huge advantage that you get when you pick Leonardo and Donatello, because they're able to hit things that are further away, which you'll be doing quite often in this game. Michelangelo and Ralph suffer from serious power shortage, and you tend to only use them once your main turtles are captured or very weak. Like I said earlier, the game is extremely difficult, which is fine, but some of these jumps are really annoying and are mainly designed for the sake of torture and frustration. Overall, it's a pretty good Ninja Turtles game. It has barely any replay value though, because once you beat it, there's not really anything else to do, and because it's so hard, you probably won't be coming back to this one for a little while. But still, check it out. Alright, so that was the first one on NES. It's nowhere near as good as the later ones that followed it up. And speaking of sequels, let's check out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 on NES. Alright, this one's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. It's much better than the first one on NES. The control is very good. It's easy to perform jump kicks and other attacks as well. The gameplay is outstanding. It's real addicting. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, which is more suited for a TMNT game than the platformer action kind of thing from the first game. It reminds me of games like Double Dragon and Final Fight. You basically go through each stage, beating up a wide variety of enemies, and the stages are also varied pretty well. In Stage 1, you're in a burning building, and in Stage 2, you're in the streets of Manhattan. The rest of the stages range from a snowy Central Park, which takes place in the spring by the way, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever, to the dreaded Technodrome. The graphics are excellent. They're much better than the first one, and they're actually almost as good as the arcade game was. The music was also pretty great. Overall, this is a good version of TMNT. Check it out. There was one more game on NES, to my knowledge. It was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project. The gameplay is outstanding. I'm really running out of adjectives here. It's so addicting that I can't even explain it. The control is nice and smooth, and it's easy to pull off special moves. The graphics look great. There's tons of colors everywhere, and it looks very nice. The music sounds awesome. Overall, this is also a good version of the Ninja Turtles. Check it out. Alright, so that about wraps it up for this video. Tune in for part 2, and we'll check out Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo, the Hyperstone Heist on Genesis, and TMNT Tournament Fighters on SNES. So, see you later.